By the time I started running into those cases where, why are we doing this? Like, it's not worth the squeeze. You learn to accept that, payment is payment. Currency is currency. Leverage is leverage. Doesn't matter if it's something on a DVD, something in a, shrink wrapped bag, or just cash in hand. It doesn't matter what the leverage is. It's just leverage. So you learn to accept that. But the thing that really sucks is when you start to realize that the mission you signed up for was to keep Americans safe, to protect your mom, your dad, your cousins, your grandparents, your nephews, your children. That's what you're there to do. Stop terrorists, end nuclear proliferation, save democracy, that kind of shit, right? That's what you believe when you're in there. But then instead you end up chasing negotiation prices for wheat or rice or deforestation or some other bullshit that you're like, I don't understand how this is protecting my people back at home. And I definitely don't understand why you're putting us into danger's path to get this information.
Yeah.
What can't you find this? We're supposed to be an intelligence service of last resort.
Yeah.
You can't find some other intelligence tool that collects this for you? Or what you're really saying is your $15 million satellite isn't worth rerouting over the forests of fucking Russia. So you're going to send one of us because we're only worth $250,000. And if we're lost in the course of our duties, that sucks. But if you lose a $15 million satellite, you're really fucked.
Yeah. Wow, that's sobering. I assume then, or I guess I don't want to assume, I'll ask, that towards the end of the third tour for most agents, they start to realize that and understand that at a level where it becomes counterproductive to not bring them back and reinstitutionalize them.
Exactly. Yep, you're exactly right. That institutionalization process is critical, and that reinstitutionalization is critical. And I've seen it. I've seen it because I was able to be there through that management phase. I was brought back. I was retrained. I was fed the Kool-Aid about how, like, oh, you've cut your teeth on the world, and now what we need you is to lead the next generation of people and help make sure that they cut their teeth the right way. And you believe that shit, and you're like, oh yeah, like I'm the tip of the spear. I'm the tip of the spear. You've had those speeches. No matter where you are on the fucking spear, you're always the tip of the spear, right?
You're at the shit end of the stick, but by God, I can only imagine. Is there an entity or a guy that's actually actively managing that in terms of evaluating whether or not you've been reinstitutionalized enough to do something else or not? Like, is there a specific entity that's managing that?
So there's a certification board at the entry level, meaning when you first go through your field tradecraft course, what's known as the FARM, FTC, when you first go through that, it is not a skills evaluation. Everybody has the skills. Like, that's the beautiful thing about espionage. You can literally teach espionage to anybody you pluck off the street. How to keep a secret, how to tell a lie, how to break a lie if someone's telling you a lie, how to do a dead drop, how to send a signal. You can teach anybody espionage. What you can't teach is the sandbox effect, playing nice in the sandbox, making sure that you do what your supervisor says while also meeting the mission needs without taking too much from the other people who also need to meet their mission needs. Don't throw sand in each other's face kind of thing.
The survivor theory.
Survivor of the show, just like you said. That falls to a certification board. So essentially, for every 100 students that go through the FARM, 80 students will graduate, 20 will be washed out because the board subjectively determines that they'll throw sand in each other's face, right? After that, all decisions about your individual performance are subjective, based off of essentially an informal panel of your direct supervisor and their supervisor above them. Because the agency, just like all bureaucracies, it's a tail-riding organization. So you grandfather or you rabbi or you fleet up with the people above you. So everybody's trying to build their own little rabbi trail or their fiefdom of generals and lieutenants that they'll carry up the chain with them.
Yeah.
So that's who really decides whether or not you're fit for another field tour or whether you go into the wash mix of, now you're going to NSA as a liaison, and now you're going to the White House as a liaison, and now you're coming back to do a tour with the tech department.
Yeah. So in essence, it's almost a hamster wheel of people that have been made sure to be in the positions to make those decisions were institutionalized enough, and that torch keeps getting passed, and it's just a machine.
Correct. There's really there's really three categories of people. You've got the first category, which is what you just talked about, right? Like, we're old guard. We're looking to make sure that new guard follow the old ways, and we're traditionalists, and we're going to make sure that the torch passes down. And that's a frustrating group. That's the group that's never going to change. That's why bureaucracy moves slow.
Is that the guy in the Jason Bourne scene at the end where he's in front of Congress like, Treadstone, yeah, we ended up washing that one, and he just dismisses it away? Is that guy?
You always find that guy in the movies. Yep. Yeah. That person who's like, oh, we just made the problem go away. Because really, to succeed, you're the guy that makes problems go away, right? But then there's also this parallel group that is the misfits, right? People who bucked the system, so the old guard kicked their ass out. But when you have enough people that the old guard rejects, they start to accept each other. And what happens is sometimes those people put up a really good fight, right? The torture cases with Guantanamo Bay and some of the other black sites, that's an example of the rebels beating the old guard, but in two different ways, right? So first, there was this idea of old school sticks and bricks espionage, and that's how you steal secrets. Well, then a rebel group was like, well, why don't we just beat the shit out of these people? Because that's what they do to us.
Why am I laughing at that? I don't know. Maybe I'm fucked up.
But the rebel group won. Yeah. So then torture became a thing, and like enhanced interrogation. I will still stand behind it being enhanced interrogation. Yeah. Enhanced interrogation became a thing that was accepted and was deemed to be acceptable and legal through the eyes of the clandestine courts. Well, then another rebel group came up, and that became the new standard. And then another rebel group came up and said, actually, that's not moral. That's not ethical as Americans. We shouldn't be able to use that in court. And that's how we have the shit that we have right now, where, we can't litigate somebody who we know was in charge of 9/11 because he was waterboarded. Yeah. So regardless, you see these rebel groups, sometimes they come up and help us progress, and sometimes they come up and maybe they still help us progress, but they definitely are creating waves. Yeah. And then you have the third group of people who are just lost. And they're never going to leave because there's nothing for them to do on the outside, but they're also never going to promote up because there's nothing for them to do on the inside. Yeah. And my big fear is that as we stay in this political gridlock, either old guard people are going to go up and nothing's going to change, or old guard's going to get blocked by the executive and fucking crazy rebels are going to go up, and then it's totally unpredictable what they're going to do. Or it's going to be so hard to go up that both of them fucking quit and they go work for, NORAD, they go work for CVS, or they go work for some pharmaceutical company, or they go work for some social media company, some giant YouTube or whatever. And then you've got these pissants who never did anything with their career, and they accidentally promote up. Yeah.
It is frightening. It's kind of there is no good answer to that.
Yeah.
Going back to the personal morality question, I would call it maybe even a personal constitution. Is there a thing that for you would be a red line where you just, no matter what the mission is, whatever the leverage, you would not engage in it?
Hurting an American citizen who has abided by all the laws above them. That is the person. That is where my red line would be, right? I've had to chase American citizens who rejected their American citizenship and then joined fucking rebel groups or ISIS or some other shit. Like, your passport might be blue, but if you're carrying a fucking ISIS flag, you're dead to me, right? And that's not the way it is in the eyes of the law. That's the way it is in my own personal ethical viewpoint, right? My moral viewpoint. So for me, that's the red line, is not hurting an innocent American who's done what they've been told to do. I have also been in situations where I've been told that I had to hound an American citizen who did what they were supposed to do, who became a clandestine informant for another organization, who provided intel, who broke the law because they were directed to break the law as part of an operational incentive or endeavor. And then we have a change in policy, or we have a change in leadership, and now all of a sudden they're like, oh, that person needs to be like brought in for their crimes or whatever the fuck, right? I've been in situations like that where I'm like, I'm not the one that's going to do that. Like, if you want somebody to hunt his ass down, that's not me. Yeah. And my career paid the penalty for that, right? Yeah. But that's the nature of the beast. The nature of the beast is you still have to play nice in the sandbox. When people tell you to go do something, you have to either say yes, sir, or you pay the penalty for not saying yes, sir.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Is there something about the CIA that the public generally misunderstands?
I love this question because there's so many things that are awesome about CIA that don't ever make it into mainstream media or books because it's not sexy, right? And the big answer, the number one answer I have for this is that spies, CIA officers, are just everyday people. Like, that is honest to God what they are. They are not super soldiers. They're not, like, when you look at a team of Navy SEALs or Army Delta, like, you fucking guys look badass. When you look at a team of CIA officers, I swear to God, you feel like you're just looking at a book club.
Yeah. Fucking Marty McFly.
They just blend
George
in.
McFly.
Yeah, dude, they're nobodies. They're gray people. They have pot bellies sometimes. They have peg legs sometimes. They have thick glasses sometimes. They talk with lisps sometimes. Other times they're just totally normally forgettable people, right? But the movies make it to look like, unless you're the shit of the shit, you don't have a chance at CIA. In reality, CIA has such a diverse operation set, such a variety of requirements for ages, genders, belief systems, bearded, no beard, good vision, bad vision, video game geek, technological neophyte. They have such a diversity of need that what they're really looking for is everyday people who have a high level of teachability. Because like I said, you can teach anybody how to spy. The question is, can you teach somebody fast enough to make them operational within a window of time that makes them relevant?
Yeah.
If it takes 2 years to teach somebody how to do a dead drop, fucking they're too slow.
Yeah.
If it takes 3 months, you can get them doing dead drops by the next quarter.
Yeah.
Like, let's train that person.
Yeah. So, I mean, it sounds like it's kind of its own, like the mythic proportion of the Jason Bourne type of brand that exists in so much of our pop culture is kind of the CIA's own worst enemy, in that they probably end up passing over a lot of good talent because that good talent doesn't think they're Jason Bourne enough to even be in the CIA.
Yeah, exactly. And that is something they have been, you can see them actively working to try to overcome that.
Yeah.
If you look at, I mean, I don't like to speak well about this, but if you look at CIA advertisements, Dallas-Fort Worth has multiple full walls that are CIA advertisements. When you walk by them now, there's a very subtle influence campaign that's happening where you see that CIA is trying to diversify its hiring base by working away from the heroic-looking character. Compare it to a MARSOC ad.
Yeah.
Dallas-Fort Worth also has a number of MARSOC ads.
Yeah.
So literally just going through one airport, C terminal, you see a MARSOC ad, which is some badass Latino or African American usually, like geared it up, kitted out, alone in a plane, or alone in a large field, like carrying big guns. And then you go look at the CIA ad, and what you see is like a lady with short cropped hair in rainbow socks, kind of like a butch lesbian, standing next to somebody who's Latino with glasses in a wheelchair, sitting behind a computer, talking about the future is ours, right? So you can really see that they're trying to get away from your typical Jason Bourne character.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the question is, are they going too far? Are they making the Jason Bourne characters of the world feel like, well, that's not the same CIA. I should go do something else.
Yeah.
Who knows? It depends on what ads in Chicago.
Yeah. Yeah. No shit. That's awesome. So you met your wife in the CIA. How did you guys meet? We
actually met in our orientation week.
Oh, okay.
So one of the first few things that you do is you go through, like all good bureaucratic processes, you go through a giant onboarding meeting that lasts several days where you talk about health insurance and you sign up for dental insurance and you make your TSP and all that other bullshit, right? And you sign your I'm never going to lie on my time and attendance sheet form, right?
Yeah.
It was during that period that I actually met my wife, but we didn't start dating for about 3-ish months after that. We had to go through our own individual orientation trainings and then our trainings in our specialties. And during those specialty trainings, sometimes we overlap with other skill sets and sometimes we break apart. So it took a few times of me seeing her and her seeing me before she finally was gracious enough to give me an opening to ask her out.
Yeah. and so there were times you guys actually worked together and times you didn't?
Correct. Yeah. So for the early part of our career, before we were married, there were times where we would be on different teams that had to collaborate or cooperate. For example, there was a time that she was on a covert influence team and I was on a counterproliferation team, and we had to work together to create covert influence propaganda that discouraged the proliferation of nuclear weapons. So there were different things like that we would cross paths on through our early career. And then as we got more serious and started dating, and then ultimately made it known to the CIA that we were intending to get married, which was one of our requirements by policy that we had to tell them, then CIA started looking at ways to bring us together in an office. That's kind of what they want to do, is put you in the same office, because then you have an incentive to stay at work all day long, right? But instead, in that review, what they found is that we had actual field utility, and that was what turned us into a tandem couple.
Is that something that the CIA, generally speaking, would endorse or discourage, or is it total case by case?
It is case by case, but I would say that the rule of thumb is they discourage it, because CIA knows that whenever you have, first of all, they don't want anything in an officer's life more important than CIA. So even if you come in and you have a wife and kids, your part of your interview process is assessing whether or not your loyalty is more towards yourself or more towards someone else. Because they know that if your loyalty is to yourself, then all they have to do is make you loyal to the organization. Yeah. Tie your identity to the organization, and you're never going to go anywhere. Yeah. But if what you're loyal to is your kid, you're never going to put CIA above your kid. So they're looking for that. So whenever they bring you in and you're loyal to yourself, but then you find the love of your life, or you get married internally, they try to discourage it by highlighting all the challenges. And because you don't have to be married. Yeah. They're like, why don't you guys just have great careers where you're not married? Because then, your cover identities are safeguarded. There's space between the two of you. Like, maybe, hopefully your marriage lasts forever. But if it doesn't, there's less paperwork in the future. Yeah. So they try to discourage it that way. Some people still move forward anyways. When people do move forward anyways, they begrudgingly go through the administrative backfill of fixing your cover so that you can actually be married together. Yeah.
In this case, because you took her name, it was less of a pain in their ass.
It was more exciting to them because she was not the field officer, I was. Yeah. So there was a benefit to them. Yeah. Okay. Right. But we had plenty of people that we worked with, that we were friends with, who had also become married with another CIA officer. But then CIA is gambling because they also know that there's like a 60-ish, 65-ish% divorce rate at CIA. Yeah. So people who come in married get divorced. People who get married while they're there to non-CIA officers get divorced. And then, of course, CIA officers who marry each other get divorced.
Is it a similar rate for all three?
I don't know the breakdown for all three. Yeah. But what I do know is that CIA, we have a joke on the inside where CIA is the last person to help you get married and the first to help you get a divorce.
That's like your best friend.
Because they know when you're getting a divorce, it means a few things. You're losing half of your net wealth. You have to build that shit back up somehow. Yeah. You are literally you are ostracized from everybody on that side of the family. So you need a new best friend. And then you feel like you can't trust the family that you had. So now who can you trust? Us. Yeah. Right. So they love it because they're getting a lot of built-in loyalty.
So fresh song.